Today's story is about discovering that betrayal doesn't always come from passion or impulse. Sometimes it arrives as a carefully rehearsed performance. It's about what happens when the people you trust turn your life into a strategy, and how quiet awareness can be more powerful than any public revenge. There was still steam rising off the spaghetti when she dropped the bomb. I hadn't even sat down yet. I was holding a plate still warm from the microwave, and she looked me straight in the face, not angry, not crying, just done, and said, "Either you listen to me or you pack your things." At first I thought she was kidding. I actually laughed, like an idiot, like a cartoon husband with meatballs and zero instincts. But then she pointed. I turned. Behind me, in the hallway. My suitcase, already zipped, my toothbrush sticking out of the mesh pocket like a white flag. And that's when my stomach folded in on itself. I know what you're thinking. What did I do? What awful, unforgivable thing did I say or miss or forget? But that's the thing. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't scream. I didn't gamble. I didn't drink. If anything, I disappeared in all the quiet, loyal ways people do when they're too in love to notice the edges crumbling. I was just me. The guy who changed out the air filter without being asked. The guy who left notes in her lunch, even when she stopped texting back during the day. The guy who pretended not to see the messages pop up on her Apple Watch when she leaned over the sink to rinse. Ben. With a little fire emoji. Yeah, I saw it. I saw all of it. But I said nothing, because I figured, stupidly, that it would go away on its own, like a cold, or a phase, or a test I was supposed to pass by shutting up and trusting her. So when she gave me the ultimatum, I thought, finally, she's cracking. Maybe now she'll talk. But what she said next knocked every bone out of my body. I invited them over. I want them to hear this too. Them, Ben, her sister who always hated me, and my best friend Marshall. They all showed up. And that was the beginning of the night that rewired my entire idea of betrayal, not with a knife, not with shouting, with something far worse, silence, smirks, and one unzipped suitcase. She didn't even blink when I asked if this was a joke. She just sipped her water. Not wine, not bourbon, just plain water, like it was a courtroom deposition. And gestured toward the suitcase again like she was done rehearsing. My jacket was folded on top. That detail still gets me. She knew I wouldn't pack it right. She wanted it to look neat when I walked out, like a clean break, like closure. But then she walked away, into the dining room, and they were all already there. My best friend Marshall with a stupid grin on his face, her sister Dana with a glass of Chardonnay she didn't bring, and Ben, the one with the fire emojis, standing like he owned the place, leaning against the piano I bought her for our 5th anniversary. No one spoke. They all just stared at me like I was late for my own intervention. No one moved until she sat down. Mallory, I can barely say her name now without feeling like I'm choking on something soft and dry, tapped a spoon against the side of her glass like she was toasting a wedding. Then she said, "We've all talked, and he deserves to hear it, together." My ears rang. I wasn't even breathing. I looked at Marshall, hoping he'd break character and laugh and say, "Dude, we got you good." But all he did was lower his head like he was ashamed for me, like this had been coming, and maybe I was the only one who didn't know. She started listing things, one by one, with the same tone someone might use reading ingredients off a cereal box. How I never listen, how I live small, how I cling to the version of her that doesn't exist anymore. She said she grew, and I didn't. She said she wanted more, passion, ambition, fire. And then she said she found it, with Ben. And the room didn't explode. That would have made sense. That would have been human. But no. It was applause. From Dana. A slow, smug 3-clap applause like someone just won an argument in a courtroom drama. "Finally," she muttered. "Finally. He knows. People don't clap at funerals, but they did at mine." I walked out. I didn't take the suitcase. I left the jacket. I left everything. I walked 2 blocks in the cold Indiana wind and sat on a curb next to an overturned trash bin until my legs went numb and my phone finally rang. It was my mom. I didn't answer, because I knew if I heard someone say my name like it mattered, I'd break, and I needed to stay angry, because something was off. I knew it then. That performance, that event, was too polished, too planned, and the next day I would discover just how far she went to make sure everyone turned against me, even the people I thought I could still trust. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't want to. Sleep felt like surrender, like she'd win if I let myself drift off while she was probably curled up beside Ben in the bed we used to share. I spent the night sitting in my car, parked outside a 24-hour pharmacy, drinking gas station coffee and trying to convince myself I still had a grip on reality. By 5 a.m., I drove home. Yes, home, because as far as I was concerned, I was still paying the mortgage. The house was quiet when I walked in. She wasn't there, no sign of Ben either. Just the echo of yesterday's ambush still hanging in the air. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't even go near our bedroom. I sat down at my old desk in the guest room and opened my laptop. No idea why. Maybe I just needed a screen to stare at. But that's when I saw it. A folder on my desktop I didn't recognize. It wasn't hidden. It was right there, labeled in all caps, just in case. I clicked it. Inside, 41 screenshots, text threads, photos, voice memo files, all about me. Conversations with her sister about how he's starting to notice things and we need to move fast. A PDF titled Narrative Plan with literal bullet points describing how to talk to me, what to say, when to say it, and how to steer the conversation so that I blame myself first. She had slides, actual slides with color-coded cues, as if my breakdown had been pitched like a project. And worse, she'd shared them with Marshall. His email was right there. He'd even added notes like, "Good phrasing here," and he'll probably cry at this part. I thought I was the victim of betrayal. But this was worse. This was strategy. It wasn't just infidelity, it was orchestration. And the next name I saw in those shared files? It wasn't Ben. It was someone I never, in 1,000 guesses, would have expected. I couldn't breathe. I scrolled through the emails again, each one heavier than the last, like reading my own obituary in slow motion. My hands were shaking, and not from caffeine anymore. There, buried between shared Google Drive links and "Don't forward this" subject lines, was the sender I never expected to see, Elliot K. Elliott, my older brother. Let me explain something. Elliot and I weren't close, but we weren't enemies. He lived 2 states away, taught economics at a community college, and was the kind of guy who still mailed birthday cards and said, "Proud of you," after hearing about any accomplishment, even small ones. He and Mallory only met twice, or so I thought. Apparently, they'd been in contact for over a year, and not by accident. I opened the email thread. At the top, a message from Elliot that read, "If you're really going through with this, at least make it clean. He won't see it coming." Attached was a spreadsheet, titled Psychological Profile, L. It had categories like quote 0, quote 1, and guilt leverage, notes about me, how I react when criticized, when I retreat, when I self-blame, when I give up. He had analyzed me, and Mallory. She used it. Word for word. The dinner party, the lines she said, the order she said them in, scripted, taken directly from a timeline Elliot helped design. It even listed estimated timestamps like Phase 2, Emotional Collapse, 7:40 to 8:15 p.m. What kind of people do this? What kind of brother does this? There were no signs, no arguments, no falling out. He hadn't asked me for money. I hadn't stolen a girlfriend. Nothing. We were fine. So why? I called him. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. Then he texted me, "Don't make this worse than it has to be. Everyone's better off now. Try to understand that." Try to understand? He disassembled my life like it was a failed thesis paper, like I was some case study in emotional inertia. And she, Mallory, she executed the plan like she was born for it. Like my suffering was just a task to complete. Checked box, move on. I sat there for a long time, staring at that message. Everyone's better off now. Everyone, except me. But if they thought I was just going to roll over and vanish, disappear quietly like a failed update, they were wrong. Because that folder had something else in it, something they left behind, something they didn't think I'd ever find. And it might be the only reason I still have a chance to burn the whole damn lie down. In their perfect little plan, the color-coded outlines, the psychology charts, the synchronized betrayal, they made one mistake, a single file, tucked deep inside a nested folder called Final Version Backup. It was a video. At first, I didn't open it. I figured it was some smug rehearsal clip, or maybe a recorded call. But something about the timestamp caught my eye. It was dated 4 months before the night everything blew up, way before any of the obvious signs, before the fake fights, before the cold silences, before Ben. I clicked. The video was short, just under 2 minutes, but it shattered whatever was left of my faith in coincidences. It was Mallory, sitting at our kitchen table, the same one where she used to laugh at my bad omelets. She looked directly into the camera like she was being interviewed, and then calmly she said, "I want to break him down slowly. Not to be cruel, just to prove a point." My mouth went dry. She kept talking like she was explaining a product strategy. He always plays the victim, always folds before things get hard. If I just show everyone who he really is, not with lies, just pressure, they'll see. He'll self-destruct. They always do. They, not he, not me, they. Like I was part of some broader pattern, like I wasn't even a person anymore. The video cut off there. No context, no date, no explanation, just that haunting little speech. And for the first time since it all started, I didn't feel confused. I felt clarity. She wasn't improvising. She was testing a theory. And that meant if I could survive long enough to see her next move, maybe I could finally break the pattern. Maybe she wasn't the only one capable of strategy. The moment that video ended, I knew exactly what I couldn't do. I couldn't storm into her office or scream in her face. That's what she wanted, a messy outburst, a final confirmation that I was unstable, dramatic, reactive, that I would burn everything down myself. No, that would have given her the ending she'd already written for me. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, is that while they were busy dissecting me like a psychology lab rat, I had been quietly learning their patterns too. And I was done playing the role of the collapse. I copied the folder, not just the obvious stuff, the video, the PDFs, the emails. I made sure to dig into the file history, version changes, even cached data. You'd be surprised how much metadata gets left behind when you export a clean PDF. Mallory and my brother Elliot hadn't just planned this together. They had timelines, backup plans, and a shared bank account created 6 months ago, not just for her and Elliot, for her and Ben. Apparently, I was a placeholder, a name on the mortgage until they could make the transition clean. I didn't react, not externally. I went through my day like a ghost, ate cereal in silence, took the trash out, sent 3 work emails. I even smiled when I passed Mallory in the hallway. She looked at me the way people look at furniture, like I was already out of the house. So I started small. I changed the Wi-Fi password. She noticed, but didn't say anything. I adjusted the security settings on our shared cloud storage. Again, silence. Then I moved our savings account, the one she never touched, into a new one under my name. Still, nothing. She was too focused on her endgame to notice the ground shifting beneath her. But the real move came the next day. Mallory had a gallery opening. Not hers, one of her clients. Big venue, lots of cameras, and her favorite thing, industry people. She left around 5 p.m. in that same silver dress she wore the night she humiliated me. That was all the time I needed. I went into her office, not the home office, her actual office downtown. I still had a spare keycard from when she asked me to pick up her laptop during COVID. She never canceled it, and maybe she should have, because in her bottom drawer, behind a stack of old travel receipts, was a red leather planner, not digital, not password protected, just analog arrogance. Inside were names, meetings, flight confirmations, a handwritten list titled Post-Lowell Strategy. It wasn't over. It hadn't even started. I sat in the car outside her gallery event for 42 minutes, not stalking, not waiting to cause a scene, just watching. Watching her laugh with people she once referred to as background characters, watching Ben stand behind her like some overpaid accessory, watching her shake hands like nothing was unraveling behind her. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I used to be. I was something else, cold, surgical, focused. When I got home, I opened the planner again. The post-Lowell strategy was more detailed than I expected. It had phases: financial, emotional, social. She even made notes on who to pull in for each stage, like she was casting a play. My name barely appeared in the pages. I wasn't a person. I was an obstacle. She used words like optics, transitions, and contingency. One line, scribbled in the corner, stuck with me. If he gets suspicious, activate Dana, her sister, the one who clapped. Suddenly, all of it made sense. None of it was accidental. Not the coldness, not the dinner ambush, not even the silence from Elliot. She had been setting dominoes in motion for a year, maybe longer. But she underestimated something. I may have been soft, I may have been passive, but I remember things, and I read everything. In that planner were names. One of them was a lawyer, someone she met with 3 weeks before the ultimatum. Not a divorce lawyer, a reputation consultant, the kind people call when they're about to make a mess and want to make sure they don't look like the one who made it. So I called him. Not to start a fight, just to ask a question. Has Mallory contacted you about suppressing any online material involving me? He hesitated, long enough for me to know the answer. Off the record, he said. Yes, but only to prepare, not to act. That's all I needed, because I had material now, screenshots, videos, financial documents, a network of emails and calendar invites that painted a crystal-clear picture of premeditated manipulation, and I wasn't going to post it. I wasn't going to scream it from a rooftop. I was going to let it leak, not to the public, not yet, to her clients, to the board members she schmoozed, to the private Slack group her agency used, which she'd once forgotten to log out of on our shared iPad. It wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be fast. But it would spread. And it would look exactly like what it was, the slow unraveling of someone who had finally pushed the wrong man too far. The first time someone reached out to her agency about Quote To, it was a polite email. One of her clients, a mid-tier corporate art firm, wanted clarification on a few internal concerns. I hadn't sent them anything directly. I didn't have to. All I did was forward one carefully curated package of screenshots to a senior coordinator at the firm. From a burner email, no message, no explanation, just evidence. Within 72 hours, 2 more clients followed. Her agency didn't fire her, not publicly, but she was placed on indefinite leave. Her name vanished from the website. Her gallery appearances stopped. Her calendar cleared. She started coming home earlier, quieter, and eventually, not at all. Mallory never confronted me about it. I think she knew. And maybe that silence was the final admission, not of guilt, but of defeat. Her strategy failed. I didn't break. I didn't lash out. I didn't become the meltdown she had bet on. I outlasted her. But that wasn't the victory. The real win came after. Because once the fog cleared, once her name stopped echoing in my head like a warning bell, I started rebuilding the pieces she never touched. I reconnected with my mother, who had quietly waited for me to come back to myself. I spoke to Marshall, once, just once, enough to say, I know everything. He didn't deny it. He just nodded and walked away. I haven't heard from him since. And I'm okay with that. I moved into a smaller apartment near the river. It's quiet. The walls are thinner than I'd like, And the water heater makes a sound like it's holding in a sneeze, but it's mine. Every piece of furniture inside it, chosen by me. No performative color palettes, no monogrammed wine glasses, just things that feel like me again. Last week I started writing again, not just this. Fiction, short stories. I forgot how much I used to love it, before I shrunk myself into someone else's narrative. And the best part? There's peace now. Not revenge, not justice, just peace. She's out there somewhere, probably trying to reassemble her image. And maybe she will. Maybe she'll land on her feet like she always does. But I won't be looking over my shoulder, because this time, I'm not part of her story, and that's the happiest ending I could ask for.